Okay, welcome to this evening's edition of Nourie's Niche. I'm going to talk about bikes a little bit because I've got a couple requests coming through, which is great. I'm so excited to know that riders are wanting to get back into the sport, and also riders that are interested in getting into Flatland, so wanting to know about bikes. So there's a lot to learn, and I'm going to cover just a couple things that I know about it from my experience. But I encourage you to do your own research and really make sure that you make a wise decision when you get into purchasing your first Flatland bike. I'm going to highly recommend buying an actual Flatland bike that is not from a department store. A couple of reasons. One, I just feel like it's going to make all the difference in your experience right out of the gate. And then two, the safety factor. I just feel like department store bikes are not going to be super safe, and especially if you're going to do some of the stuff that I'm recommending, like Miami hoppers and stuff. I don't know, you could just potentially hurt yourself. So I would say buy it from a proper bike shop. There's a couple online. Also, if you need some help, I can kind of guide you through that process a little bit, which I am doing with some of these other riders. So I want to get right into it. Mainly just deciding on maybe the type of bike. So I'm riding a repop of the Lineage Haro Master, which was made in 2017. And then here, right next to it, I have what's current, like on entry level, right out of the box, Apprentice made by Colony. Both excellent bikes. Price range, this is going to come like 600 bucks. This, I actually don't really know exactly how much, but you're going to typically spend between 1,500 to probably 2,000 if you were to build up a Lineage bike, whether that's an old GT Performer or a Haro Master or whatever kind of frame that you were in love with as a kid that you want to do tricks on. Expect to pay a pretty penny for that. Partly because they're just not as many, and the price tag is going to be a little bit higher. But I want to get into the more specifics because depending on your style and what you're wanting to learn, an old school bike will warrant a few things that are going to help to make it a little easier on some of the old school tricks. And then here over with the newer school, it's gonna provide you with the latest geometry and the latest things. Now, I'm not going to get super technical because that's just not who I am, but I'm going to give you some rough ideas to consider and to think about. So let's start with this bike. Being that it's 600 bucks, I have a couple of these now for my academy, which I'm super grateful for. And what I like about it is that I can get a rider right on this bike, and they have front and rear brakes. They have a free coaster. I personally like plastic pedals for whatever reason. I've always just liked plastic pedals. I'm a little bit scared when I run metal pedals. It's got four pegs and everything you need to get going. Okay. Other points about this is that it's a really short top tube, and that's something to consider for Flatland. So I'm about 5'7". This is just under 19-inch. And again, I'm not super tech, so I don't know exact number, but I know it's just shy of 19-inch top tube. And it's got a pretty short rear end. I think it's like 13 or 13 and a half rear end. So it's much tighter rear end than what we were used to back in the day when I was riding. Zero offset forks, which I think is just good for handling all in all, to learn hang fives, to learn different tricks where your bars are either forward or backward. It doesn't make that big of a difference. This has all brakes, because I mean all brakes, I should say, front and rear brakes. I am an advocate of one to start with brakes and maybe take them off, but that's kind of a opinion that you have to decide for yourself. I teach a lot of tricks that use brakes, so that's kind of what I recommend. So this is an excellent choice if you're going to learn pretty much all around riding. Some of the old school tricks that might be challenging, cherry pickers are just not going to be able to happen super easily because your foot's not going to wedge in there. So that's one trick out of many. Nowadays they don't really have platforms, so it's a lot more challenging to do a frame stand, for example. Again, these are just kind of few and far between, but all in all, this is a great bike to start off with if you're just wanting to get into Flatland and start learning, all the different rolling tricks and balance tricks. These bars are pretty darn wide. I actually have a tape measure because I looked at them and I thought, man, those are wide. So I'm running on my bike, these are standard strip bars, and they're like 28 and a half. All right. Now these are, I don't know if they're going to be wider, but they sure seem wider. Yeah, actually it's the exact same, 28 and a half, and they're probably a little bit taller maybe. So the rise is probably higher on this bike. Again, that's going to be a little bit better for controlling for these new school type of tricks. So I would recommend this if you're wanting to get into Flatland. You got around 600 bucks to spend. That's the perfect choice for you. If you are a rider that had a relationship with a bike, like I did with this master, that you somehow just love that feeling of riding whatever that may be, whether it's a GT or a Hutch or a Dyno or a Master, Power Master, there's something about having that, you know, maybe just the memories that it brings up as a child. For me now, I do a couple of different funny modifications on this, but let's go back into the specifics. So this is a 19, they made these in 19 and a half. And for me, that half an inch does make a difference. Like I said, I'm only 5'7", so if I stand this up next to me, and another thing to consider is when you're standing and you're trying to go over the head tube, shorter top tube is going to help to be able to manage that. This bike, what I run is 0 offset. I have front and rear brakes with the gyro. I have a coaster brake, which is kind of unique, but I've just been riding coaster brake for years. And there are a couple tricks that I do, like a pedal spin, a backwards pedal picker. The Gumby is always a lot easier if you have a coaster brake. And then I'm running 4 pegs, and I'm running these Iggy pegs, which are amazing. They've got the removable ends that are rounded so that you can really pivot your foot on the end of the peg. Highly recommend those. They're definitely a good upgrade. Even if you were to buy the Princess and put those on there, it would be a really good move. I also want a quick release seat clamp so that I can raise and lower the seat, so I can either have the bars hit the seat or not, just again for my older balance tricks. So my point of all this is that if you are a rider that's getting back into the sport after many years of maybe not riding as much, or you just really want to step it up and get a bike that you loved as a kid, you will consider this, because they're going to be a lot of those tricks that you can kind of fall back on, like a cherry picker. And actually, even on this one, it's a little slightly different, and I should actually maybe get shorter little posts for my brakes, because it's kind of like threading a needle on this bike. It's different than the original Master. This distance is a little bit shorter. And what else can I say about it? Well, and it's got the double tube, so the platforms for frame stands. It's just an all-around good bike for me. It's what I like riding, and it's a personal choice for you. But that's kind of what I want this video to maybe help, is deciding, should I get an old school bike expecting to pay quite a bit more money, or should I get a bike that is, you know, kind of right out of the box, but not a department store box, but right out of the box, where you can get going right away, and it has all the features: free coaster, short top tube, front brake, rear brake, all 4 pegs, gyro, everything that you can ask for to get started. So I can't really think of anything else, but please, if there's some specific questions you have, feel free to reach out, send a comment, or send me a message, and I'll do my best to answer it and just guide you on this path of finding the right bike for you, because it's important. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.